What it still says that we are unable to start video.
It says recording now to me.
Yeah, but it says unable to start video because you have to stop it. Assuming that you are the host or whoever is the host has to stop it.
Let me see. No, it says it's recording.
Yeah, but like we cannot share our video. That has nothing to do with the recording. Just said that.
It says that I stopped what?
That the video, you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
It's the participant video. You just need to allow participant video. That's all.
I mean, you don't have to see me, but I'm just telling you.
How do I permit participant video?
If you open the video, might be an option there, like the little arrow on the bottom of your screen where the video is.
Yep.
Video settings, maybe.
Maybe, let me see. So try now and see if that does it. Nope. Nope.
Hold on, I'm getting the instructions here. So technically you would need to go to the Zoom web portal and select account management, then account settings.
Great.
Woody, I can try that. If you haven't got time, I'll log in and see if I can make that change.
All right, that'd be great, Cam.
I'll have the instructions here on the chat, Cam, in case you need.
Thank you, Simona. I really appreciate your proactive approach to that.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I'm not listed as a participant. Okay.
Let me see if I can. You should be getting moved to participant now.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, right. All right, hopefully we'll solve the video problem shortly. Somehow I'm the only one who can activate my video.
Yeah, we can see you.
Great. I'm sure that's a pleasure, but
it is.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we get started? Let me do a roll call first. So Cam?
Present.
Nina?
Present.
Simone?
Present.
Kevin?
Present.
Marty?
Present.
And I'm here. So we have just a quorum. So our agenda for tonight is fairly busy. So despite the lack of video, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. The first presentation this evening is from Fire and Ambulance, and Chief Wright and Kate County are both here. So,
Woody, sorry to interrupt, but it looks like we have to leave.
Come back in.
What happened to
I think
Cam?
I think we lost him.
I think we did.
Because I
Maybe-
think we have to leave and he goes click.
Yeah.
Maybe he's leaving and coming back in, and that's is
Yeah.
going to show us that that's going to.
I think
Woody-
we all have to. Oh, Woody is connecting with Cam's face.
It's working now.
Except you're Woody on the screen.
Oh, that's right, because I logged in as
No,
him.
it's
You had to
not.
log in with me.
I think we all have to leave and come back if we want to use video. It's not working.
All right, great.
Yeah, okay. I think we'll just have to restart the whole session.
And
Why doesn't
Rich,
everybody step out and come back in, and I'll just for those who end up as attendees, I'll bring you in.
Sorry, no dice.
Nope,
So-
it doesn't work for me, but that's fine. You don't have to see me, Woody. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we might as well go ahead and go on
Yeah.
as it is. So
So, still got your name, Woody. I'm sorry.
don't worry about it, Cam. I logged on numerous times as you, so it's only
okay, the video's still not working.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
no.
doesn't, but
All
that's
right.
okay.
I think we'll go ahead without it since
Right.
it doesn't seem to be crucial. So Chief Wright and Kate are both here. So why don't the two of you go ahead and get started?
Okay, I think that Kate might be, is that Jim?
Yeah, I'm here also.
Yeah, that Jim, your name says Kate Canny on it.
It does?
We have two Kates.
Yeah, I forwarded the invite to you, Jim, and I think it came up as me. So,
Oh, okay, that makes
and
sense.
I'm going to apologize. I'm going to have to pop off probably halfway through this. So I'm going to leave it to Chief Wright and Jim to probably wrap it up. But most of the presentation will be the chief.
Yes.
Great. All right.
And
Okay,
Woody, it's Kevin. Can I just ask just a little bit of context? Because since this is kind of some of our first go around. So is this Q&A at the end, or what? You know, what's the general format here?
I think in general we tend to defer questions to the end, but I think if you have something pressing that you think will change the way they might address something, it's just raise your hand.
Okay.
okay, do you want me to get right into it?
Go ahead. Yeah, might as well get started.
If you want, I can try sharing the budget screen and see if it works.
Yes, go ahead. It should be enabled.
Okay,
Yep.
we can see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'll start with the fire budget. There are a few changes in it. The largest changes that we're looking to move forward to a full-time chief. The Board of Fire Engineers did a study on the position, and the report came back and recommended that the town move towards a full-time fire chief. So we have put that increased funding into this budget. Just to give you a quick context in regard to it, towns our size, let's say between 5,000 and 7,000 is what I believe the report had out. And roughly 33 of the 36 towns all had full-time chiefs, and we were one of the 3 that didn't. So it's a relative, it's not an uncommon practice for towns our size to have a full-time chief. So that, and you can see in the salary areas, we have a few new accounts. It's going to help us look at our numbers a little bit better. In particular, on-call pay was included in regular salaries prior. So now we'll be able to see, you know, what we're paying for basically people to be on standby And then the permanent staff line is the part-time and full-time salaried personnel and all the call firefighters when they go on a call. That's what's paid out of that line item. And then this on-call pay, the 5136. This is the $123,000 that we pay for firefighters to be on call. So what we typically do is holiday weekends, and it depends on whether or not it's a 3 or 4 day weekend or a single holiday in the middle of a week. We put four firefighters on call, an officer and 3, for 12 hours day shift and a 12-hour night shift. And again, it depends on how many days there are in that holiday weekend, so that we can ensure that we have people in town ready to respond to calls. So that when we put them on a 12-hour standby, they get paid 8 hours for the 12 hours of coverage. And then training is pretty self-explanatory. That's our regular training meetings. That was increased this year. We currently have, generally speaking, 1 training session a month. We want to bump that up to 2 training sessions per month, with several of them being a weekend day, like a 4-hour block on a weekend, so that we can do more evolution training, which is when we actually utilize the individual skills, we put them together in a we call it evolution. So they say we're practicing roof ventilations. We'll respond, show up on location wherever we're training. The crew will be ready to go out, deploy the ladder, get the roof saw, do all the individual skills, so that they get to practice putting them together and get that, we call it muscle memory, in regard to doing those activities. And that's, I guess I'll ask any questions specific to the salary side, if anybody has any.
Yeah, I had a question, Chief. You mentioned that the on-call pay in the prior year was included as part of the overall salaries.
That's correct.
So is that in the $505,000 on the top there?
That's correct. So in this current fiscal year, it's included in this $505,000 line item. The full-time chief adds approximately $100,000 to the salary line item. That's why it kind of stays the same, and we took that out of the on-call pay and moved it over here.
I see. Okay.
The other increase that we have is some more training time. That's kind of down here in the training section.
Okay.
There is, I don't know, do you get a copy of this sheet?
No.
No. Okay, so this kind of breaks it out by specifics. I'll go through it real quick. This is the regular, so we anticipate roughly 375 calls for the year, about 2 hours per event. 10 firefighters typically respond on average. So that's a total cost of $227,000. This is the on-call pay stuff that we were talking about right here. This is, so there's 3-day holidays, 4-day holidays, and then over the summer, we cover from Memorial Day or July 4th through Labor Day. We cover every weekend during the summer with coverage, so that there's people around. Then there is this right here, this on-call officer is an additional coverage that we're looking for, an on-call coverage. Basically, it's nights and weekends, excluding the holiday coverage. It's separate from those. That there's an officer that's assigned to respond. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, when a fire alarm call comes in, not too many people want to necessarily get out of bed for a fire alarm. There's an officer that's assigned. We know that they'll respond to the call. Any serious calls, most everybody responds to everything, but I'll call it the routine, for lack of a better term. Sometimes it's difficult to get people up, or on a weekend, everybody's busy, so that we make sure we have an officer that's in town, available to respond to calls to support the firefighters. Then this is the training pay, so an average of 3 hours for 24 training sessions per year. Typically, all the firefighters attend those, whether they're at the ones we set up or they do an alternative training. Fire Academy, so it's 240 hours for a new firefighter to go through the Fire Academy. Very, very intensive requirement for a part-time person to spend. So I have a firefighter that just started the academy February 10th. He doesn't graduate till June 30th. He's basically going to class 2 nights a week and then 3 of the 4 weekends, 1 day. So it's a lot of commitment to move through that. But that's what that 240 hours are for 2 new firefighters to go through the academy. CPR training we have to do every year, every 2 years. So this is half the staff doing it. And first responder, the same thing. We have to do that every 2 years.
Nina, you
So-
just raised your
Oh,
hand. There's a
Yeah,
question.
just a quick question. I was wondering if any of your stats include serving other towns. How does that work? Do we pool resources when there's the need for more fire engines?
So
or-
we do a lot of, we receive way more mutual aid than we provide, especially on the ambulance side. So that's just a regular salary line item. They don't bill us and we don't bill them if we help them or they help us. So we have mutual aid agreements with all the, well, it's a statewide mutual aid agreement. So if we're called to assist another town, we go. If we call them, they come, and nobody charges anybody
Okay,
unless
thank
there
you.
happens to be a federal disaster or something like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Could you speak a little more to the need for the full-time chief?
There's a lengthy report. I can share it with the Warrant Committee if they want to review it. I mean, I'm not sure how in detail you want to get. It's a multiple page document, goes over lots of things. You know, if there was a specific question, it's just as there's so many requirements for the organization that a part-time person, and I'm speaking, I've been a chief for a very long time in smaller full-time organizations, and it's even as a part-time fire department doesn't reduce the amount of requirements that we have to do.
Right.
Just a few years ago, the State Department of Labor Standards adopted OSHA requirements for all municipal. We used to be exempt. Municipal employees used to be exempt. Now all municipal employees are required to do a number of things. There's a whole list of training that, quite frankly, we haven't been quite up to speed on, that I'm working on trying to get up to speed. There's a number of policies that we haven't generated. So we're working through all those issues. And a lot of that's because there's only so much time, you know, a part-time chief is working. I'm currently working about 24 hours a week. And I'm barely, you know, keeping par, and I'm experienced at doing all this. So, you know, a lesser experienced chief, it's going to take a while to get up to speed to stay on top of all the requirements that are needed. And again, I'll share the report with the Warrant Committee.
This is Jim Dolly. In the fall of 2024, the Board of Fire Engineers commissioned John Pyro Consulting and Associates to look at the staffing levels of the Dover Fire Chief's position. And the chief referred to that a few minutes ago in his opening remarks. And Chief, if you send that along, I think that'll open up the eyes, everyone, how far below professional standards we are at staffing right now. We're trying to professionalize the fire department, along with the Board of Selectmen trying to professionalize the whole town. And that's the impetus of, number one, the study, and number two, deciding whether we hire a full-time fire chief.
And do we anticipate any problem recruiting someone?
I can't answer that, but I don't think so. We have a salary that's somewhat in the ballpark, proposed salary in the ballpark of what's paid throughout the state at the level of the town's population. So I don't think so. But, I don't have a crystal ball on that one.
Great.
So moving on, you can actually see the breakout of the stipend positions we have in the department are up here. So we currently don't have a deputy chief. We're waiting until a permanent chief is appointed to appoint the deputy chief. But all these we just recently promoted some lieutenants. So we have our officer slot, except for the deputy chief, filled. We have our salaried or hourly personnel. We have the chief, which we're proposing at 40 hours a week. The fire inspector, who works 24, the executive assistant, who works 30, and the firefighter mechanic, who works 16. And then, of course, the Board of Engineers. So this number ties over into the total number of the salary budget. So the breakout is specific to that, all the information on that spreadsheet. Any other questions on salary? No. Oops, sorry.
No. Well, I guess it's Kevin. Kevin Bauman just asked a question. So I mean, I don't know is this like a 30% increase year over year then, or something like that, or what? I don't know what the percent breakdown is.
Yeah, it's the increase over last year's total is about 34, 35%. So it's pretty significant, although it's a pretty small budget, but.
Right. And I'm just trying to I understand it, but really the whole thing comes down to basically, like you're saying, a full-time fire chief versus not.
That's correct. As well as we need to increase our training. We've been lacking in our training of our personnel. So, years ago, there typically used to be a lot more fire calls. So personnel got kind of on the job training more than we do today. There's just not a lot of fires, and when they do happen, they can be very dangerous to the people that are trying to extinguish them. So we need to keep them trained so that we don't have any catastrophic incidents with our personnel, and that they can do their job and rescue people and save property as their mission to accomplish is.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, moving on to the supply side, or equipment and supplies. Relatively the same all the way through, up to office supplies. So it's actually a decrease, but it's a decrease because there was some two tough books and cradles that were purchased. That was a one-time cost, basically. So that was a $12,000 item. So really, this line item from previous years is going up a little bit. But again, we don't have a copier in the fire station, which is really necessary for us to do all of our work. As well as there's some reorganization that needs to be done with offices as we move to a full-time chief. So there's going to be some office furniture expenses and a computer, things like that. So that's what so I broke it out roughly at an additional $6,000, which is $4,000 for the copier and $1,000 for office and a computer. And those are just kind of ballpark numbers. And then moving on to the larger increase. So we have, obviously, it's about a $30,000 increase here. And there's several things that we don't have in our organization that I believe need to be brought in. I've highlighted some things that we already pay. Some things out of there. Norfolk County Chief dues we pay, but we're not currently members of the Mass Fire Chiefs. And that's, again, in the study, that's, as a professional organization, you typically belong to the associations relative to your position. So we propose to belong to the Mass Fire Chiefs Association. I got Chief Stews twice, but shared resource, we already pay that. That's all the equipment, tech rescue, a whole bunch of stuff that the county has. We contribute to that every year. We have for years, so that's not new. But NFPA, we currently don't belong to the fire code subscription service. So we kind of, there is some, we can sometimes get the free codes, but that's challenging. You can't search it. You can't try to find specific things that you're working on with codes. We're starting to build some larger projects here in town. You know, you have the larger apartment buildings that are moving forward. So we need to have that reference material to make sure that things are being properly constructed. The next two are Lexipol and First Due. Lexipol is basically it's a policy and procedure program. It's a cloud-based program that allows all of the policies, and they develop all the, call it, standard policies for the organization, and they're all based on the state laws, OSHA, all the requirements that are out there that is very difficult for us to personally come up with those items. And additionally, we can add in all of our own custom policies and operations manuals. And what it does, it allows for full accountability in the implementation and distribution of the policy system. So each member has an account. They go in, they have to go in, acknowledge that they've read and understood all the policies. Once the policy system is in full swing, they send out quarterly trainings on a variety of different policies where 2 or 3 question quiz will come out. So it's all tracked. It's a full software system. Many of the area departments are using this system, and I used to use it in 2 of the departments that I previously worked in. And it's a great way to make sure that everybody's kept up to date, and it really helps the town protect itself in that we have the acknowledgement and the proof that everybody has read and understand the policies.
Chief,
The second item.
Chief, this is
Yes.
Jim Dolly. I want to reiterate that we worked very hard over the last, I'm going to say 6 months to 8 months on a new policy and operations manual for all firefighters and ambulance that they have to sign. So whether it's dress code, the way they respond, how they handle communications, that's all in the new policy and operations manual that all of our members had to sign and accept, which wasn't the case before. So the chief is adding a lot of firepower as those things change all the time with how firefighters have to respond and ambulance has to respond. And we're trying to be proactive there and get in front of it instead of learning by reading in the Boston Globe or something what code has changed or whatever the case may be. And I'm simplifying that, but these new requests by the chief will help us tremendously in keeping our code of conduct and acceptance up to date. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that was important.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Woody?
Sure, Marty.
I was just curious, in that software package and the policy formulation and implementation, is that pretty uniform and standard across the different fire departments, or is there a unique aspect to the Dover department that requires you to have your own system?
So it is much of it, all of the call it all the state laws, codes, OSHA, all that stuff is is the same for all the departments. And then each department has operations wise, most departments have a custom way that we do things. You know, we're a smaller department, so we do things much different than, say, Westwood does. So we customize it based on our stuff specifically. But yes, a lot of it is very similar across the board.
So are there any opportunities to maybe join and collaborate or have a consortium of the surrounding towns to maybe avoid having everybody have to pay whatever it is, $1,000?
Yeah, it's So it's based on population and members. So this is on the, well, this is the initiation phase. So next year it's going to go down a few $1,000s. I think it's about $12,000 a year. I can't remember. I got it right here. Yeah, the recurring cost for this, gotta make sure it's right. I have it as 6,500. So there's a kind of a upfront cost that's quite high to get it initiated, because they come in and they do a lot of work with us to bring in what we have, to customize all the policies that we have, and then it's a recurring cost from there, and the recurring cost is 6,500, so it'll drop significantly next year as we move forward. And they don't offer, to do it. They want every department. It's like every other subscription service. I don't like any of them, but they have to keep their program and software up to date, so it costs money to do that. The second one there is First Do. That's a computer-aided dispatch and resource management software program. Basically, it would tie in with our dispatcher. So there's multiple phases that this program does for us. One of the more important ones is tying to our dispatch service. So right now it's the police, when they get the information on a call, they put it into a computer, and it sends out a file. Will send out a file to this program, and it'll alert all the firefighters digitally on their phone that there's a call at this address. It'll tell them where it is. It'll pop a map up so they can see where it is. It'll also pull up a pre-fire plan, which is another component of this program, where it'll pull up the property, and whatever information is in there, it'll show us. And one very nice thing about this is all the assessing data can be pulled into this. So all the square foot of the house, the type of heating systems, all that other information can be pulled in, will be pulled in directly from the assessing system. And then we can also add our own specific information. There's another component, it's called Community Connect, where citizens would be able to put special information if they had, if they wanted to say that I have a disabled child that's in the second floor rear bedroom or whatever, that could be in there. That would pop up to all the firefighters. So it's a useful tool for response. It also does smoke detectors permitting, open burning permits. There's a training component where we can track all the training, because right now we have paper that we have training tracked on, so we want to get into the digital world and track our training digitally. So it's a really nice software system. Again, I've used it in other organizations. There's several of our area towns. We're able to share information between our towns. So if we go mutual aid there, or they come mutual aid here, they can pop up our response data. And then, just as a side note, it's all held securely. It's got medical level protection, so that it's not just available for anybody to see. And I see somebody had a question, I think.
Yes.
Yes, it's Cam Hudson here, Chief. I'm just wondering, for the dispatching elements, is this software necessary for supporting multiple town dispatching? So, I mean, the proposal to share dispatching with another town, if we were to go ahead with such an agreement with another town, would this software be able to handle the automatic dispatching?
Yes. So all the CAD dispatch software that's out there, they'll export a file, and this software system would receive the information that that puts out. And it's just a matter of making sure both systems know that if I tell it the address is here, our software on our side needs to know that here's the address once it's received. So it doesn't matter whether because currently we use IMC for our dispatch software at the police department, and our EMS records right now, we are able to send some data over to that. So it's basically the same type of thing. It's pretty much a one-way street with the CAD. So the dispatch stuff sends it to us, and we take it and go from there.
Now, you
So all
mentioned
the
that happens through a file. Is that a batch process that runs automatically, every minute, or how will that work? So if a central dispatching unit in another town gets a call, how can you guys in Dover actually see that dispatch request automatically?
Yep, it's sent automatically out. The system
Okay.
picks it up I think it's more frequent than a minute. It pulls it
Okay.
in, pops out an
Excellent.
alert. It's a very fast
Okay.
system.
Thank you.
Yep. And the other thing is, if we actually do go to a regional dispatch system and we get a 911 development grant, they'll pay for this, so we wouldn't need it. But right now, we don't know if that's going to happen or not. So we have it here to move forward. Hopefully it does, and we have money to turn back at the end of the year.
Great.
So those are the primary items on the fire budget. Any other questions?
Any other questions on the fire budget, or any of the questions about the long-term projection?
Well, I still have a question about the regional dispatching. You're saying that if we get to a regional dispatching agreement, this software package would be paid for by a grant. But if we proceed this year, then we've thrown this money away. And if we start a regional dispatching service next year, we won't get that money.
Yeah, well,
So I guess another way of putting it is, if we deferred this software package until we were sure what the status of the regional dispatching was, would that save us money?
Sure. It's not the right way to do things, though, because the idea is to enhance the service that we have. So how it's funded, ideally, we can get the money through another source, but it doesn't change the fact that this is really needed for professional service, to get the information out to the crews, to have a pre-fire plan so we know what the hazards are when they show up. If we keep delaying these items, year after year, that's a problem for the firefighters. So I certainly hope that we can get it funded through a regional system, but I don't like postponing thing year after year, hoping that maybe it happens. I mean, it's great if it does and the town can benefit, but I don't think it should be the driving factor as to whether we get it.
Okay, thank you.
Nina and then Simone.
Yeah, further to your point, Woody, I'm wondering about the durability of the equipment and the planning for buying new engines. I think it was noted that the New York Times recently had an article on how engines are now costing in the millions and the delay is inordinate because there are only 3 companies that manufacture them. So I'm wondering what the department is thinking about that.
We have a capital plan, actually. In this, we have a new engine that's supposed to be being delivered in December. That was voted a couple of years ago, I believe. And we also have on this year's capital plan a second engine for replacement. The engines are early 90s, the ones we're replacing, and they have an open rear cab, so the firefighters basically sit with, there's no doors in the back area of the the trucks. So those are the ones that we're looking to get replaced right away. And yes, in fact, they are insanely expensive. It's about $1.25 million for an engine, and it takes typically at least 2 years to get them now. Some companies are saying more than 2 years.
This is Jim Dolly again. To that question, and to the chief's point, obviously, we were going to be a little more aggressive in replacing our equipment because the older equipment is, a couple of decades or whatever the case may be. But the capital budget committee has pushed out our ideas also. But we're well aware of the age and we track our inventory very closely.
Thank you.
Simone?
Hi, Chief. I wonder if you have seen any trends towards like the issues that we are seeing across the US with wildfires, and like if we have to have like a separate plan for that, like what are your thoughts as we are facing more of those wildfires?
So obviously the urban wildland interface is always a topic that the fire service is addressing. Us in Dover, in particular, we don't have a real full hydrant system. So we rely heavily on water and trucks to do a lot of our firefighting. So we're actually in a little bit better position than most organizations. We have one over 1,000-gallon four-wheel drive vehicle, as well as another 300-gallon one, and then we have our tanker that's 4,000 gallons. So we are in a good position to supply the water to help extinguish the wildfires. One of the it kind of goes in cycles. Back in the 50s, there was a lot of brush fires, wood fires out there. So over the years, a lot of deadfall and leaves and everything has accumulated over the years. So things we pay attention to is to make sure that fire roads are reasonably maintained so we have access. It's something that we really try to pay attention to. Again, it's one of those things that we only have so much time to do things, and a full-time chief would certainly have the ability to look at that and more in depth. But all in all, I think we're relatively well prepared. It sometimes can be scary. The earlier notification, the better, and that's because the bigger the fire gets, the harder it is. And depending on conditions like we had this past year, we had, I think it was 600% or 700% more fires this last fall than we've had, in many years. Not us in particular. We didn't have any large brush fires that in Dover, but we did respond to several of our surrounding areas and assisted with them. So it's something we're certainly paying attention to. We are in a reasonably good position. It's all about resources and personnel in order to address them, as well as some prevention efforts. So I appreciate the concern, and we have it as well.
Thank you very much, and by all means, I think this is something that as a community we should be all thinking on how we can contribute to minimize the risks. So if there is anything that we can think of in terms of education to prevent this to happen, by all means let us know, and I'm sure that we can find ways to help disseminate information. But thank you so much for everything that you've been doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. The planning board is joined us, so I think we'll move on to the.
You want to hit
next
the ambulance real
presentation.
quick?
Oh, yep. You go ahead and do it. Yep.
I'll keep it quick. This one's a little bit easier. So again, in this particular case, we broke the accounts out more, so we have a much better understanding of the call it on-call pay that we have. So you can see last year, the salaries, which includes the on-call pay as well as the pay for people to go to calls. That's now broken out where you see that we're the 235,000, that's the on-call pay, and the 56 is the pay to go on calls. And then we have coordinator stipends, and then training, we increased again on the same token as the fire side. We were only doing one training a month. We really need to be doing two. So that was added in. And I'll show you real quick. So this is how the breakout of the, here's the calls. It's about 2.5 hours a call for 2 EMTs. So this is where we come up with our salary to respond to calls, basically. Then the on-call pay. So we did slightly increase our on-call coverage. We've been having troubles on weekends getting coverage. So these coverage hours essentially cover the town Monday through Friday during the days and Friday night through Sunday night on the weekends. And so basically Sunday night through Thursday night is people volunteering to be on call. Other than that, it's paid to be covered. And then here's the training time. Some new hire training. We do 8 hours with new people. EMT refresher, every other year we have half of our staff that has to recertify their EMT and CPR as well. And then we did change this one position. We're looking to make so that we used to have, they were all paid the same. The EMS coordinator is the leader of the group. So it's appropriate to have them as an officer position. And then the 3 supporting roles, supporting coordinators would be at the regular stipend amount. So that's how we come up with this total budget. Any questions on salary side real quick? Moving on to supplies, pretty straightforward. The increases in medical supplies, as you know, everything is more expensive, and this is the replacement supplies for the ambulance. We've been overspending that account for the past couple years, so this is to get it in line with what the expenses are. And I think that was on the phone. I thought I raised the telephone. The telephone. So we have 2 tablets and a cell phone that are on data plans. So this is what it costs us per year, the $1,500. We've been underfunded in that, so I brought it up to what the actual funding level for the services that we have are. And that's all the increases in the supply side. Any questions?
Anything from the warrant committee?
So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I will forward over the fire chief study so that you can see that.
That'd be great. If you send it to me, I can send it to the rest of the group.
Great.
Thank you,
so
Chief.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Kevin reminded me, I do intend to have us, to the warrant committee, have some time for discussion at the end of the presentations, but have scheduled presentations, so I think we'll go right through them. We have Carol Lisbon and Jasmine Farinacci from the planning board here. So Carol, somehow I've disabled the video portion of the Zoom, which we've been unable to fix. So it's just verbal, but I can do your slides.
Great. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. It's just, it's.
And there I was trying to decide what color lipstick to wear tonight.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Well, thank you all. It's always a pleasure to come before the Warrant Committee. And we look forward to doing this tonight. So this is a a presentation that I actually gave this morning to the Council on Aging, and which went well, but quickly. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time, though. I think we could go to the next slide. And the next one. There we go. Okay, so we have 5 articles for the town meeting. First reaction was, oh my goodness, 5 articles, but they're all, we think, simple. Some of them are just administrative, and we really don't expect to have to spend a lot of time on them at town meeting. So if we go to the next slide, the first one is the acceptance of easements, and the next slide after that. Okay, you'll note that we have Article XX on all these because I don't believe they've been numbered yet, and we'll add that in when that's done. So easements are very important to Dover. The planning board often works with a developer when subdivisions are created, and to make sure that the value of the trail system that we all know and love in Dover is maintained, and as maintained and for the future. So there's a process by which the planning board would approve a subdivision, let's say with an easement. And then that easement is supposed to go to town meeting for approval. And when it goes to town meeting for approval, it means that if the holder of the easement, the property owner, wants to get the easement extinguished, removed, they would have to go to town meeting. And what happened back in 2022, we had a new town planner come in who was tasked with sort of seeing how the department was working and what make sure that we had been crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. And we discovered that in fact, over decades, many of the easements had not been taken to town meeting. So we were going to do that in May of 2022, and for various reasons, I pulled the easement at the last minute. So if we go to the next slide, we've identified 4 easements that never went to town meeting and which are still easements that we as a town need to keep hold of. So as you can see, as I said decades ago, this was an easement that was established in 1992. It connects various hiking, horseback riding, cross-country ski trails, playgrounds, and so forth. All the kind of criteria that the planning board would have been using back then when looking at these developments. So the next slide, please. This is a very short easement. It has to do with on Center Street, and it's a connecting trail into Wild Woods. Next easement, please. Taylor Estates, which is now basically Village Hill Road. There's an easement along one of the houses there from 1986. Wilson's Way is the newest one. That's the development of, I don't know, 5 or 7 very large homes off of Wilsondale. And this is a great easement. I remember walking it years ago. There's that pond there. It's got a beaver dam. They're beautiful trails. Connects all the way from Dedham Street up to Wilsondale into Hale. So those are the 4 that have been identified as easements that, for whatever reason, in the past, did not go to town meeting. So we'll be asking the town meeting members to approve the acceptance of these easements at town meeting. We had a meeting, we sent out a letter to all the property owners. We had a few attend, we answered their questions. So we're hoping that there's not going to be much discussion or disagreement at the town meeting on these. It doesn't change the legality of the easement. In other words, even though it wasn't accepted at town meeting, it is still a legal easement in the Registry of Deeds. Acceptance at town meeting just makes it clear that 5 planning board members elected usually in a non-contested election won't have the ability in the future to apply their personal thoughts about easements if we require a town meeting to get rid of an easement. Any questions on this article?
Carol, I just
Just a
had,
quick one. Let's go ahead, Marty.
no, I was just going to ask Carol, I was not aware of any of these easements. Are they marked? Can you see them if you were to walk any of these areas like this one here at NoNet?
Probably not. You know, that raises the bigger issue, quite frankly, of how we map our trail systems. So if you go to some of the maps that are available online that are often kept by the Open Space Committee,
Mhm.
and you'll see the trail maps, you would see some of these easements.
Okay. But are
Carol,
they,
I just got a clarification question. On the left-hand side at the bottom there, you say the question uses only in red, general public access in fuchsia. How does this apply to the map that we've got here?
So if you look at the trail that starts on Dedham Street,
Mm-hmm.
so you can take that trail up to connect with the
Oh, that's a fuchsia color. I was thinking
yes,
that was
yes.
red.
Oh
Sorry.
no, right. We might
Okay,
want to
that's
make
clear now.
yeah, there you go. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to the next article and the next slide, which is accessory dwelling units. So at the town meeting in the spring of 2024, Dover voted to amend the ADU bylaw to allow for attached and detached 900 square foot or less ADUs. And there were various conditions in the bylaw. This summer, the Beacon Hill approved the Affordable Homes Act. And as part of the initiatives that we see coming out of Boston relative to how to address the housing crisis in the Commonwealth, they passed this law which basically says that ADUs are by right. And what by right means from a zoning and planning standpoint is that we cannot prohibit. We can do site plan review and discuss various aspects of it, but we cannot prohibit it. And they issued the final guidelines just last month. And Wellesley and Needham are doing the exact same thing that we're going to be doing at town meeting this spring. So we need to update our ADU bylaw to match the state Affordable Homes Act. This actually went into effect February 1st. So even though our bylaw still does not reflect the new requirements of the AHA, from a planning board or a building inspector a building department standpoint, we would have to adhere to the state law anyway. But I think most residents tend to look at our bylaws when they're thinking about what they might be able to do with their property. So we always want to make sure, and it's good management practice, obviously, to make sure, excuse me, to make sure that our bylaw represents what the state requires. Excuse me for just a minute. Oh, I hope I'm not getting what everybody else seems to have. So we have to update our bylaw to apply with the Affordable Homes Act. And if you go to the next page, you'll see what it is that we have to change. So right now, the bylaw that was approved at town meeting had two different processes for ADUs. If it was an attached ADU, meaning an ADU that was in someone's home in their basement or in the attic, it just required site plan review. If it was going to be a detached ADU, which is an ADU that is in somebody's garage or a barn or just a separate building built for that purpose, it was going to require site plan review and then a special permit process through the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's no longer legal. So we have to change the bylaw to reflect the fact that whether it is an attached or a detached ADU, it just requires site plan review. In addition, we had a clause in our bylaw that said either the ADU or the primary residence had to be owner occupied. That too is now illegal per the Affordable Homes Act. So we have to remove that. We also had in it some design guidelines that were subjective, but gave some indication of what, especially for detached ADUs, we would like to see. Those two are now unenforceable, so we have to remove that clause. So we'll be going with 3 changes to our current bylaw, and they all reflect the changes that we have to make based upon the AHA. If this bylaw doesn't get passed, it's almost irrelevant, unfortunately, because state law trumps local law. So questions on the ADU?
Hey, Carol, it's Kevin. Is there any change to the square footage that you mentioned in the original bylaw?
No, the definitions stay the same. So 900 square feet, it has to have a kitchen, bedroom area, and a bathroom. All the building code issues relative to ADUs stay the same.
Okay, and so if somebody were to build a new one, you still have to pull like a building permit, right?
Oh yes, and you still have to go through site plan review.
Right, okay, okay.
Yep.
Good.
Any more questions on ADUs? Okay, modification of site plan review. Next slide, please. So site plan review currently is in our bylaws, chapter 185-36. It allows for 30 days for the planning board to review a site plan and issue a determination once we've determined that the application is complete. Due to the level of detail that's required for review, some of these site plans are getting bigger and bigger. And the schedule of the meetings of the planning board, which is every 2 weeks, and the fact that we only have one town planner. We are proposing to extend the site plan review period from 30 days to that should be 60 days. So can I see the next? Okay, oh, so sorry. So any questions on that? We think that the extension will not only give the planning board an opportunity to do better due diligence on the site plan review, but we have, for the last 5-6 years, implemented a policy. It's not legally required, but we notify all abutters when we get an application that requires a site plan review. And with 30 days, by the time it's been looked at, we try to get out abutter notifications. They often end up going out with just maybe 3 or 4 days for the abutters to take a look and think about it. So by extending it to 60 days, we'll also be able to give the abutters more time to think about the impact that the application might have on their property, to respond with their thoughts and comments to the planning board. And that will give the planning board more time to really effectively think about what the neighbors have to say.
Carol, I just noticed the
Janet, you have
6
a
instead of
question?
60. Sorry. I just noticed 6 instead of 60.
Yeah, yep, that has to be changed. I'm also, I think, missing a slide here. Next slide goes to the next. Yeah, so we're missing a slide here too. I'm not sure where it is. We'll have to look. So any questions on that? Okay, the floodplain bylaw. So there's a national flood insurance program that allows folks that have property in a FEMA determined floodplain to get insurance through this national flood insurance program. To do that, the town has to have a floodplain bylaw that reflects the terms and conditions that are acceptable at the state and the federal level for floodplain bylaws. And back in 2023, actually, at town meeting, we made major changes to the floodplain bylaw to reflect the new requirements from the state and federal governments, and it was approved at town meeting. We were hoping at the time that we would also have FEMA maps that also have to be accepted at town meeting. And by the time May came around, May of 2023, there were no maps. And in fact, we still don't have the maps, but we are promised that we will have the maps this spring and that they will be effective on July 8th of this year. So we are hoping to be able to bring this to town meeting get the maps approved, make a couple of slight editing changes required, nothing substantive, but required by the state. And that will allow the residents and owners of floodplain property in Dover to take advantage of the insurance program that the federal government offers. Once we get the maps, it's our practice to send out a notice to all the property owners that these new maps are there and that their property is effective, and we hope to be able to do that in time, but we're waiting to hear from the state on when the maps are coming in.
Cam, you have a question?
Any questions?
Cam?
Cam, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Carol, I was just wondering whether if we don't get the maps by town meeting, where does that leave us, or more particularly, where does it leave residents who want to get such insurance? Are they still able to do it, or?
Yes, they are. They use the maps. I believe they're from 2012.
Okay.
And the current bylaw reflects those maps.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
Other questions about this article? Right, great.
Okay, next one, and next slide, please. So this next article is a request of the building department. It's under the planning board bylaw because it's a zoning bylaw that the building department works with. So we've been asked to present these changes at town meeting. They're totally administrative in nature. There's absolutely nothing substantive. Joe Doyle, who along with Walter makes up the building department, has been keeping track of citizen and contractor questions about some of the zoning bylaws that come before the building department. And he's given us a list of little changes that he would like to make some of our bylaws clearer and easier to work with. So for instance, the first bullet here, to add a footnote that reminds people that we also have a stormwater bylaw. To add a footnote about dimensional requirements to remind folks that if it's an accessory structure, they have to look somewhere else in the bylaw as well. And the third bullet we're taking out. These slides were done this morning and we made a decision this afternoon, so we'll be updating that slide. And the state building code makes a distinction between small family daycare centers and large family daycare centers. There are differences in building code requirements, parking requirements, and the fire code. And our definitions in Chapter 185, the zoning bylaw, currently does not make a distinction between small and large. So the building department feels that's an important thing to do. So that's what we'll be doing to add to the definitions. Any questions on this one? So there we have it. The 5.
Great.
We can make predictions of how long it's going to take a town meeting. Sealed envelopes.
Well, longer than you think.
Yes, I know. Always. You just never know what's going to pique somebody's interest.
So any further discussion on this? Janet?
So I know, Carol, you mentioned that with the ADU, since it's state or federal mandated, that there's nothing we can do about it. So what's the point of going through the motion of voting?
Well, because people look, so best practice is always to have consistency in the law. So you don't want somebody going to our local bylaws and thinking they could do A, B, and C, and then discuss and then if they even think about going to the state law to look, finding out that they can't do A, B, and C. So you always want to try to have them match.
Right, but can we just say this is the changes that has to happen and just announce it instead of going through the
No,
motion?
bylaws require town meeting vote. By
Oh,
law.
even okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we have to go through the process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If no other questions, thank you very much, Carol.
Great. Well, thank you all.
Kevin is here, so even though we're actually ahead of schedule, but why don't we go ahead and hear from DPW?
Great. It looks like I can share my screen, so I'll do that. Good evening to the Warrant Committee. Can everyone see that? Does everyone see a Word document?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Coming in slowly.
Okay, so we'll just roll through the items here and feel free to stop if you have any questions along the way. Our Whiting Road account would be level funded this year. Care of Trees, that's level funded, but last year, or fiscal 24 rather, that was put into highway maintenance budget. The big driver of the increase in our highway budget would be for a full-time town engineer. As many are aware, the town has a part-time town engineer right now that averages about 10 hours a week. But with the robust stormwater bylaw that we adopted at town meeting last year, and current backlog on our MS4 permitting, this is the time that we're going to need to pick up that slack and that work. And to put that in perspective, right now with the stormwater bylaw, the town engineer has 41 open plans, site plans. A lot of these spanned over years of development. So they're, whether it's initial review of site plans, then the actual site review, construction inspections, and then periodic inspections along the development. This position also serves as a liaison to the planning board, board of selectmen, building inspector, and conservation commission. Our overtime line item was increased by 3%. Our seasonal staffing was increased to 490. And the other increases in the highway maintenance budget would be a $6,000 increase in the tuition and education line item. And that would be for CDL training. The town currently has 2 open positions, and like every other surrounding community, recruitment's been very difficult to find licensed operators with a CDL. So that costs the driver school to send a new hire to a school in Avon to get their licensure, their DOT physical, and all that is encompassed of that. The other driver is a $20,000 increase request in engineering expenses. As obviously we just spoke about, part of this would be able to pick up some slack on the fully consulted out MS4 permit. We're in year 7 of a 10-year permit, and EPA is issuing guidance now for another extension of this permit and further regulations that will affect all communities going forward. Snow and ice is level funded. Streetlights is level funded. And town garage would be a slight increase of $1,850, which would encompass switching our, I believe it was 55 Mbps when we looked into upgrade our internet service. And so obviously, as you know, since the community center has been under construction, we've been the temporary home for the Park and Rec department, so more users, so that was required. But we were late in making that change in the budget, so it just would be reflecting that that increase that we've absorbed. So, and then for Article 428 for Tarvia, this increase is this is the same increase as last year for amount of $50,000 to get us closer to a collective $800,000, which is what the town of Dover should be spending on the roadway network to maintain our approximately 81 PCI, which is a pavement condition index. Last year, the request was 50, and 25 was received at town meeting. Fortunately, last year we received some additional funds via the Fair Share Act, which came in the way of about $169,000. The unfortunate part of this is that budget is half of what it was last year. So it's an inconsistent revenue source. The amount's inconsistent. It'll be there every year. So as far as that delta, which is about 237,000 between our Chapter 90 funding and then local operating to achieve that 800,000. And the governor has a bond as well to increase Chapter 90 over the next 8 years by 50%. So likely it would be this year and potentially only next year to achieve the level funding that we need to maintain level service in our roadway network. A increase of $1,492 for salaries at solid waste. The union currently their contract will be expiring in June, so negotiations hasn't started, so this doesn't reflect cost of living. This is just a step increase for staff. The other individuals at Highway are virtually, I think all but one are maxed out in step increases. And then an increase of expenses of 24,598. And that's a derivative of our contracted trucking service, our estimated tipping fees for Wilburator, the incinerator where all solid waste goes, and on our current trends with our recycling. And that is our budget in a nutshell. This was included in the packet, but this is just an estimate of how that the 285,387 is derived, and then just previous year tipping fees dating all the way back to 2009.
Kevin, might I ask what a P-Palace is?
That is the porta potty that is at the transfer station.
Okay.
And then I also have the write-ups if anyone wanted to review those or have more follow-up detail questions answered
Kevin,
for any of the increases.
do you anticipate that the recycling costs are going to continue to go up?
Yes.
Yeah.
High level, eventually in the next couple of years, a lot of this stuff goes overseas to China, and stateside down in Virginia, they're opening a large facility. I think it's scheduled to open in 2028. So when there's more avenues for this stuff stateside to be recycled, it could kind of level off. But you know, obviously that's several years out. So.
Hey, Kevin, this is Kevin Bauman. Thanks for all the information. At the top of the page, again, I'm just interested in what's the year-over-year increase, basically. It's as a percentage for total budget.
Yeah, I don't have that available.
Okay, so there isn't a total, like a total between last fiscal year and this fiscal year?
Yeah, I don't have it available at home. I certainly could follow up tomorrow and send that over to Woody.
Okay.
Kevin, this is Michael Blanchard. I have it up on I have our budget model up on my screen. So it's broken down by DPW department, but I can just run through them. So total percentage increase. So this is salaries and expenses for DPW highway is 10.4%.
Okay.
Snow and ice is 0. Street lights is 0. Town garage is 1.6%. Road work or Tarvia patching is 16.4%. Solid waste is 6.3%. And that's, and Whiting Road was 0% as well.
Okay. So the big driver is a 16% line item then.
Yep. So the drivers that I can see, so one is the DPW salaries, but again, that's the full-time engineer request. And then the 16%, that's the driver there is a $50,000 ask in additional paving money.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Simone and then Mish.
Hey, Kevin, this question actually comes from my husband. He's obsessed cleaning the storm drains in our street. Have you guys done any kind of campaign to ask the residents to take care of the storm drains during the fall, but also during the winter? Like particularly, what we had this couple of weeks.
Yeah,
like I live in Norwood and
some
was a
flooding.
disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, last time we've had some flooding, we've done some social media on the town to help residents. There's close to probably 1,800 basins and growing. And the reason I say growing is we're inventorying everything currently through a state revolving fund grant that we got, and so that work will continue into next year as well. The town's slated right now to get a phase 2 grant that we submitted. But that hasn't been released yet. So,
have you thought about like putting some stakes, something to actually mark where the storm drains are, particularly when we have snow, to make sure that it's clean after the trucks plow? Because that was like what held a lot of water and created a lot of ice, for example, here.
Yeah, no, fortunately, we've had a lot of senior staff here that do know where all those basins are. The specific event that you're talking about, right? Everything switched to rain and became basically almost plowing a cement, if you will. So it was challenging to push everything back to get those basins open.
Okay, thank you.
Mish?
Kevin, I just had a quick question about the full-time engineer position and whether you were eliminating the part-time or the on-call funded line, and also whether if that full-time salary is being brought on to deal with sort of a backlog, does that need to be a salaried position, or is that something that could be done by something on a project basis?
Yeah, so we have contracted work right now. So the vendor that the town used for 6 years prior to my arrival, I seeing their work, in doing the stormwater bylaw, it just was time to get a second opinion and look at that and identify that shortfall. So that's all separate work, and that's why there's an increase to catch us up to be compliant for that year 10 of the permit. So that's the first part of that. The second part is our current town engineer has expressed his desire to retire this summer. So that $28,000 that's in the engineering expenses for our current town engineer would be absorbed into that increase to reduce that. I believe that was your question.
Okay, and the work that moving forward, the work that needs to be done you think needs to be done by a salaried employee?
Yeah, the town's always had one. It's just the needs of the community and the development of the community, and now our stormwater authority, which is the DPW, in the added level of review now. So what passed at town meeting, any site development on any lot, 25% of the lot or 5,500 square feet, whichever smaller, would trigger a site plan review. And a developer or homeowner would have to provide that plan to the town engineer, who would review it, go through the checklist and have those revisions and those inspections. So because of that stormwater bylaw, which in part was to bring us up to compliance with the EPA through the MS4 as well, that was another thing we were behind on. So it just kind of is all collided at once. But with the town engineer expressing his desire to officially retire, that would be the perfect segue. So in a perfect storm, we would advertise after town meeting allowing a couple months for recruitment and some onboarding, and hopefully a little bit of a month or 2 months or 3 or whatever we can get out of Mike currently to help transition all those plans in status and to get up to speed. And then also that would allow to integrate for the work with the consultant for the MS4 permitting. And then to be able to do a lot more stuff locally as far as inspections of outfalls and testing and that sort of thing that we don't have the bandwidth or capacity to achieve now with our staffing.
Okay.
Carol, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I would just like to support Kevin's request for a full-time town engineer. As part of our site plan review process at the planning board, we work very closely currently with Mike Angeri, the town engineer, looking at all these site plans, not only because of the impact of the new stormwater bylaw, which basically impacts probably close to 100% of any application that we see, and many of the applications that are seen in the building department. But there are also other types of engineering questions that come up outside of the stormwater that the planning board and the building department needs engineering expertise for. So we fully support this request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, I think that's it for questions about the operating budget.
Simona still has her hand up. I don't know whether that means
Yes,
she wants to talk.
is that a residual hand
No, yeah,
elevator?
I forgot. I just put it
Okay,
down.
all right, good.
Thank you.
No problem. Oh, okay, Kevin, you want to keep going?
Well, we've covered that, the operating. So if there is no more questions, then I'm assuming you guys would like a sneak peek at capital as well.
Yes, yeah, we would.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing and I should have that open as well.
One quick question, Kevin Bauman again, Carol, to that point you just made, did you have to pay for any engineering consulting services to answer your questions? Was there any, in other words, if we have a full-time, is there any cost takeout on your side?
So ultimately there will be a reduction on what I need to contract out for the MS4, is that this position would be basically the administrator of that stormwater authority, which was created at town meeting. So obviously this, granted, in a perfect scenario, someone would start July 1st or whatever that Monday would be. But I've had a mechanic position open since October. So recruitment in the municipal sector is very hard. So I don't see in the first year there being a reduction in what we have for consulted services.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So this is the memo I had shared to the Capital Warrant Committee. So our first request would be for a town fuel island replacement. Our current tanks are from 1994. That's estimated to be a little over $1.5 million. This is for all the labor and public safety arms of the town, currently at the DPW facility, finishing up the permitting of that now to achieve a bid opening prior to town meeting, so we'd have a hard number. Our second priority is to replace a 1986 six-wheel Mack dump truck with plow and spreader. Our next replacement would be for H2, which is a supervisor pickup with plow. Our next priority would be H16, which is a 1-ton dump truck with plow and spreader. Our next priority is a tractor with a mower deck and snow attachments. And that is a park and rec piece of equipment. And another mower for our cemetery department. The unique part about this is we'd actually be trading in 2 pieces of equipment for 1. So I'm already seeing some synergies and some overlap here with the incorporation of the DPW July 1st. So obviously reducing some of our fleet already. And then this has been rescinded. We received a grant for a culvert and used some ARPA funding surplus that we had on the stormwater drainage conveyance system that'll be kicking off in April at the DPW site. I don't know if everyone's familiar, but I guess it was 2 years ago now, our entire complex flooded. So this is kind of that last piece to keep us out of working in a moat. So but again, you won't see that on capital or a town meeting as we were able to have creative funding sources for that. So I see, Cam, you have a question.
Yes, Kevin, I was just wanting to refer to the fuel island again for a moment. I remember that the planning board approved the site plan, but with several conditions. Where do we stand on those conditions?
Yeah, so I'm working right now with Town Administrator Blanchard to schedule a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, as that's in the municipal district and groundwater protection. They're the actual approver. So technically, the conditions are recommendations from the planning board. So typically, you go site plan review and that, and they're the approver, but because of the overlay district and being in the municipal, it goes to the Board of Selectmen. So that should be, I would assume before the end of March, we would have that.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, what's the life expectancy of the fuel island, and how do you factor in kind of a transition to electric vehicles in terms of the need for the fuel island?
Woody, that's my question.
Yeah. Well, you didn't ask it, so I thought I'd fill in.
So life expectancy would be the same as these tanks, 30 years. The beauty of what's being designed is it'll be its last stop. So basically, the steel tank would be able to you would basically cut the end caps of the bollards and then slide the entire tank out and replace it in 30 years. So as far as, the canopy and dispensers and everything else, it would have to be kind of retrofitted, but not totally replaced. So the same life cycle, 30 years, but a lot less work in plumbing and piping and electrical and all that sort of thing. So that's question 1. Question 2, that's still a giant question mark. So I live in the present day, and the present day is we have tanks beyond their life cycle. And also so eventually, right, that, we will be incorporating, whether it's police, fire, or DPW or all aspects, right, some EV vehicles, but, the other capital question, right, would be, the cost of that and the infrastructure and getting all that stuff there. So, we're obviously still several years from that being, a realistic grasp. And, I would strongly encourage the town not to wait for that decision because, I'd be more confident the tanks to leak first before we had you know, a totally EV fleet. So
Mish?
Yeah, Kevin, is this proposal assume that the island is relocated to the rear of the building? And if so, I know that other locations were considered, including leaving it in this current position, and just replacing the tanks. Is there a cost difference in those other scenarios?
yeah, so I guess 2 years ago now we did a site feasibility that kind of addressed all of it. The planning board's website would have all of those correspondence and nitty-gritty questions. You know, we went to the Conservation Commission and all that sort of stuff. So we've kind of addressed all of that at this point. So all of that's summarized in there. But the downside to trying to do that, so I guess there's two parts. The tanks should have never been put where they are. So the first part is that the town accepted at 1970 annual town meeting a AT&T easement. So the tanks are probably about, I don't know, live about 7 feet inside of that easement that said there should be no permanent structure. And if we ever sold the land, it would transfer to the next covenants. So I don't know if the town has ever been formally slapped by AT&T for that. So that was kind of one. So if we addressed that 7 feet and moved it over, if you're familiar with our site and where that is, it's already basically 1-car lane past those. So that would not be advantageous for egress into the building. And basically, and then the other side of the building is also kind of one lane travel as well. So it just kind of presents a ebb and flow and traffic problems. Then the other main concern that was addressed with all parties was the operational disbandment. As you know, this will be, you know, a 5-6 month process before these tanks are live. So there's the operational side of building the new facility, integrating all users. You know, all these systems have like key fobs, or you know, that there's, you know, gas boy and fuel, and they all have, you know, it's basically a tag or a fob. So getting every user switched over to that, working out any of the glitches or bugs with the system first, and electronic and the computer reporting and all of that. And then at that point, the other tanks would be redlined and decommissioned and properly disposed of. So that would leave a huge question mark locally for, you know, a period of 6 months. In virtually all of our fleet, or most of our fleet, and virtually all the fire department is diesel. And so we wouldn't be able to source diesel locally. The closest shop is by Blue Moon over there on 109. So also, you know, DPW, police and fire are 24/7 operations. So that would put us in a significant bind if Chief Wright was in a working fire scenario, or obviously us in a natural disaster or blizzard situation.
Kevin?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Just a question on, I know we had brought this up, but as far as the trucks that you mentioned, are there leasing options on these types of vehicles rather than outright buying them?
There are. It's not a common practice, and that's really kind of a finance director and you guys as far as a funding policy. I know the closest abutter that does that is Brookline, but they many years ago in an override got a substantial amount allotted to the DPW every year in capital funding. So that's how they leverage their equipment. They'll do 10-year lease to owns. With the capital budget committee, we did look at that last year on the front end loader we purchased, and it was decided the capital budget decided not to move in that direction. And then also just a fleet size. Another option would be kind of turnover leases, but our fleet isn't big enough for that. one of the communities I worked in does that with enterprise, but they have a significant amount of like supervisor vehicles and inspectors, whereas police, fire, and DPW, all of our vehicles are custom. Whether it be like police and their computers and radios and everything like that, and ours is all the hydraulic lines and stuff like that. So I actually had those conversations, and the enterprise was not interested, just because of basically because everything's upfitted with lights and everything else, just how many, it just wouldn't work, or they wouldn't be interested in our fleet size.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned in the total town budget has a pretty big CapEx hit across the board, and just thinking about creative options to kind of maybe defer some CapEx or delay some CapEx, but not yet, but be able to upgrade the fleet anyway. So just to kind of spread out.
Yeah, and so I don't know what the end result is, why Barry opted not to. I think it was the interest rate on it. But for the larger trucks per se, the 6 and 10 wheelers and front end loaders, so the larger capital ones, it's not unusual to do a 10-year lease on those. It's just it just depends on what the town decides for the financial operating of it.
So Kevin, I suggest we table that for the moment and take it to the budget working group that both Woody and I are part of, to get a better sense of what the options are there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Dave?
Yes, Kevin, has the fire suppression option been included in the 1.525?
No, that is the original estimate when I submitted this in capital. So in the next couple of weeks, as our design engineer, Weston Sampson's addressing all of the recommendations from the planning board, that'll be rolled into that, and then we'll have a different construction estimate.
Do you have just a rough order of magnitude for the warrant committee?
Price wise?
Yes.
They mentioned it would be, I believe, 50,000 to 100 for fire suppression.
Oh, great. I just wanted everyone to know that there is a potential. I mean, if we're going to do this and not have a fire protection system, that just doesn't seem prudent. So we've asked, or the planning board recommended, and we've asked that gets looked at. And I just wanted everyone to understand that this number is likely to go up, or have an option to go up. So that's all. Thank you, Woody.
Yep. Other comments, question for Kevin? If not, thank you very much, Kevin, for your presentation.
Thank you to the committee.
I see Mark is here. Mark, is Chris going to be here tonight, or?
Hi, Woody. Sorry, it won't let me put on the camera, but yes, Chris is scheduled to be here. I can, if he's not on the call, I can check in and just see if he can get here a little early.
You want to do that because it looks like we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
Yeah, let me reach out to him.
That'd be great. Thank you. So we will have a few minutes at the end to just discuss what the different presentations have been. Then just wanted to kind of go through the schedule for the next 2 weeks. So next week we have police at 6, capital budget at 6:45. Barry's been having some medical problems, but I think if he is not able to present, we'll try and get an alternative presenter, so that we can at least take a look at what the capital budget requests are looking like. And then Michael's going to present the Board of Selectmen Townhouse at 7:30, and then finish with the library. And then the following week, Dawn is going to do a relatively brief presentation on the schools, since we've heard both from we've heard the regional school presentation, and we've heard Chickering's presentation. She's just going to update us. And then I'm hoping we'll have some time to go through the 3 citizens petitions and just get a sense of what those are going to be like. Currently, the 3 citizens petitions are acceptance of Wilson's Way as a town conveyance, I think is the terminology. There's a citizen's petition around site plan review, and there's a resubmission of a citizen's petition on planning a study of sidewalk on Cross Street. So those are the 3 ones that are at least kind of in the hopper for now.
Woody, have we sent out the sort of process documents to those petitioners so that we can get, so that they follow the process that we outlined a couple of years back?
They were supposed to get that as part of their initial application process. So this is the guideline. Actually, Dave, I think, primarily developed this.
Exactly, yeah.
Which gives each of the citizens petitioners guidelines about how they present, what they need to include, those kinds of things. And thoughts. We've had, I would say, variable success at communicating with the petitioners in terms of the nature of their presentations. But I think one of the responsibilities of the Warrant Committee is to try to help the citizen petitioners make their presentations as clear and as concise as they can, so that they can at least be reviewed adequately at town meeting. So I thought this is 5 days before the open hearing is scheduled, and I'm hoping that they will have their actual slides and presentations ready to go when they present to us. That just for those of you who aren't familiar with this, they have 8 minutes to present their proposal with slides if they desire, and then there's time for questioning, obviously. But they're supposed to be able to present their argument in 8 minutes, as with other articles, and I think there is a tendency for them to want to include more slides than are actually practical. So part of the goal of this meeting is to help them make their presentations as concise and clear as possible. Not to endorse the petition, but just to make the presentation as clear as possible. We will use what we hear on the 12th and on at open hearing in our own internal discussion about whether or not we're going to support or not support the citizens petitions. We do vote on these, and our recommendation does go into the blue book.
Woody, it's Kevin. I know that's my liaison assignment, and I'm happy. I just don't have. I don't know who they are or what their contact info is. I mean, I would love to. I would more than welcome to reach out to them, but I just
Yeah,
need a little bit.
I'll get you that in the next few days, Kevin. I'm sorry, I've just been slow, kind of working.
Oh,
on it.
okay. Yeah, if you get that to me, I can certainly reach out and at least even maybe just have a preliminary one-on-one with them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thanks.
And Kevin, if
Kevin,
you
you might
need,
also be get that information from Felicia Hoffman to sort of short circuit the process there.
you
Dave,
literally
you were going
just
to say
said what I
something.
was going to say, Cam, and that is good. Ask Felicia because she will have the policy, which you should be familiar with, Kevin. And they should have been given that when they handed in their petitions, their signatures. That was the triggering point. So once the citizen's petition has enough, it goes in, it's handed into Felicia, she certifies it, and then the whole process is given to them.
Okay, so I can just reach out to her then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, and I think it'd be great, Kevin, if you could just sort of ask them, have they read that process document, and are they comfortable with conforming to that at open meeting?
Okay, sure. Good. Thank you.
Just as a warning, 2 years ago when I did one of the reviews, the petitioner had I think 55 slides initially for an 8-minute presentation.
Well, we certainly want to limit to 52 or 53.
Yeah. He got it down, but it was still 30 by the time he presented.
Yeah. Okay.
Right,
And
great.
Kevin, if you reach out to Felicia, can you also copy me or send it to me what you get? Because I'm supposed to be working on this with you as well.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
Thank you.
And
All right, great.
Kevin, if this gets to be a huge amount, if you need help working with them, I'm happy to help you with that if you need it.
Yeah, no, thanks. There's just 3 of them, right?
They're just 3. I think you have 2 and Simone has 1.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, yeah, absolutely, Simone.
Thank you.
So I see, I just let Chris in. So Parks and Rec is next. Thank you both for moving things up. And if you have slides, it should be set for you to share.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll just a few slides and hopefully let's see here. All right. For those my name is Mark Galoni, Director of Parks and Recreation. And Chris Boland, our Chair of our Park and Rec Commission, is on the call as well. I'll go through a few slides, and then obviously, if you have any questions, we can answer those questions. Just a quick, obviously we have our Parks and Rec Commission, so they're our board that oversees the department. And our goal our mission is to provide residents of all ages some sort of positive recreational experience, whether it's a program, an activity, or a service under our jurisdiction. Just a quick department overview. So we have a few full-time staff, so director, assistant director, and a new recreation supervisor that was approved last year at town meeting. And then we also have on the park side, as Kevin had mentioned, now under kind of a DPW, those parks operations, groundskeeper, heavy equipment operator, we have those as full-time staff. We also have over 30 seasonal staff throughout the year, most in the summer, supporting our programs and our operations. So just a quick snapshot, kind of we look at it as two kind of areas, parks and program. So the park staff oversees outdoor maintenance in town building, townhouse, community center, protective agencies, library, Chickering School, Channing Pond, some small islands throughout the town. And we also maintain and schedule recreation spaces, whether that's the Carroll Fields, Chickering Fields, tennis courts, or the playground. And on the program side, offer a wide range of programs, whether it's sports, art, musical theater, animation. Those are all programs that we offer throughout the year. And then we host a number of community events, Dover Days, fishing derby, summer concerts, Halloween trunk or treat. So we have right now over 10 community events that we do throughout the year. And then just quickly, kind of moving into a new chapter. So thank you to the Warrant Committee last year for supporting the full-time rec supervisor with obviously going into the community center, that community space for all, and how do we better serve the residents of all ages. Right now we're in multiple locations, so we're excited for that new chapter, and we can expand our opportunities and expand our engagement with the residents, whether that's through programs or events, and truly we're investing in the community's future. So we're excited about that, and a big part of that was that another full-time position. So here, just is there an overview of our budget? The only increase is related to salaries. So we have an increase of 12,657 for actual salaries, and the other increases are related to that, whether it's part of the union contract, clothing allowance, or OT. And then so other expenses, those are level funded. Most of our other expenses, one is grounds maintenance, for example, for the grounds throughout town, that's 40,000. Of that, 91,000 is grounds maintenance. And we have some other smaller items for electricity, professional development, and some fuel, water. So those are smaller items in our expense line item. But yeah, so that's kind of an overview of our budget. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from the committee? This is too easy.
Hey, Chris. Sorry, Mark. Thanks so much for presenting. I think it would be just good for some people who might not be so familiar with Parks and Recs if you explain a little bit of the two separate, basically budgets or pockets that you manage, and also explain that you had underspent in previous years and like how the hiring process impacted that.
Sure.
So they can get a better understanding of what we are talking about here.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so for our budget, we have an operating budget, obviously that's presented tonight, and we also have a revolving fund that is strictly program related. So programs that are offered, those fees attached to that. Also, there are some programs and events that are free. But yeah, so the revolving fund brings in fees, user fees, whether it's for programs, field use, and then those can be used back into those, whether it's those programs, whether it's, for example, at tennis courts, we have tennis lessons, and those could be used for improvements at the tennis site at Carroll Park. But yeah, so the revolving fund each year that is certified by the town accountant, yeah, those can be used for program related. So our operating budget is not program related. So the operating budget, as I mentioned, is mostly salaries. And then some ground maintenance is our biggest line item. But yeah, so those are the two sources that we use to offer programs and offer things to the town. And then we did give back some money the last few years, mostly related to the ground side. So we, in the past, have had 3 full-time positions. The Park and Rec Commission, a few years back, we were talking about, merging with DPW, creating this DPW with cemetery and highway. in Parks and Rec on the park side. So the decision was made to hold off on hiring that position. So in return, we still budgeted for the position, not knowing when that would happen. But that did result in giving back some money that goes back to the town. And then the hope is in working with Robin and Kevin, to fill that position, just so we can. We did have to outsource some mowing at our fields because we're down one person, but the hope now is that we can reduce that and not have the need to outsource. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, but yeah, let me know if there's any questions related to that.
I think that this is very helpful for people to understand. I don't know if you want to add anything specifically about the community center, as we all hope to be, start using it relatively soon. Like all the exciting plans that you might have.
Yeah, no, we're excited. Yeah, we're just waiting for the go ahead. But yeah, we have lots of stuff planned. We're cautiously optimistic. So yeah, we're ready to go once we can move in. Right now we're across, a lot of spaces in town, some out of town. So it's been a couple years of just kind of trying to get as much as we can out there to the residents. But it's been a challenge. But so we're excited to have a home. Yeah, so I think our goal and the goal for the town is, the community center is for everyone. It's not just Parks and Rec. It's COA. It's for the entire town. So how do we make sure that people are going into the new community center and want to go in, whether it's for programs, events, meetings, just to talk with friends. So yeah, so we have a lot of ideas to get people into the building, and we're hopeful that it'll become really kind of a big hub for the residents.
Yeah, and this is Chris. I'd also just like to mention, that, I mean, I've been on Park and Rec for 15 years, and the evolution from when I started, and even before I started, when I first moved to town 22, 23 years ago, the Park and Rec was really about, it was the parks, certainly, but on the recreation side, it was very narrowly focused on youth sports. Soon after I joined, we brought Mark on board, and he was an assistant director and then eventually a director. And in that time, we've really broadened the scope of the programming, the access to all residents, and we continue to do that. So the community center is just another opportunity to continue to expand that scope in a very positive way and give recreation opportunities and community opportunities for really everybody in the town. We even had a public forum last night to plan for the rail trail that we joined, that was hosted by the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. And again, we're continuing to expand the opportunities for recreation, community activity, and vitality for the town. And that's just been a really progressive thing. And so we really appreciate the fact that we've had the opportunity to have a staff and an operating budget, and then it's allowed us to build out those revolving programs. And we'll continue to do that in some capacity, probably under a different context as part of the community center, but very similar opportunity really to bring life to the town. And it's just been a real wonderful thing to watch the progress that Mark and his team have made and continue to make, and adding, a new staff member last year. It's really a real asset to the town, and a real credit to Mark and his team.
Others? Mark, most of us have a little bit of PTSD from the discussion of pickleball last hearing town meeting. Could you just talk, see that you're not requesting funds for the pickleball courts this year, but maybe a capital request the following year. Can you just talk about what the vision for the Carroll Park kind of renovation is now, how it's evolved,
Sure.
and where you think things are going?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, last year there was a larger project that included the playground and pickleball courts. I think the commission and obviously the staff still, think there's a need. What we've done related to pickleball is we've set up a trial at the Carroll Park tennis court. I'm sorry, Carroll Park basketball court. So what we did last summer and after town meeting and through the fall, we cleaned off the surface. We put down pickleball lines and we put up temporary nets to allow residents to kind of test the location. So we had some great feedback over the fall to, in terms of the location and having the courts. We had some good usage. So the idea from the commission and staff was to allow that to go for a full year. So we'll, kind of test that location, just see, what things pop up in terms of, on the basketball court. And then I think long term would be to potentially resurface. The court does have cracks. We tried to fill in some of the larger ones, but the idea would potentially to be to repave that court and put pickleball lines with some nets down there. So that's the idea for pickleball. It was in terms of location, we looked at a number of locations, but just in terms of that location was we felt was best just because it's not near a lot of neighbors. Obviously there is a noise that comes with pickleball, and it's surrounded by trees. So we felt like that was a good kind of muffles the noise in that location, but still allowing people to get their ample parking. So that's the plan for pickleball. But yeah, right now there's nothing on capital budget. The hope is to go through a full year and then potentially go back for a smaller resurfacing. And then the playground still we're in the middle of working with our playground company and then putting together a small group of residents to just get their feedback in terms of what they want to see in a new playground. And then so that will take 2 more months. And then the plan would be to come back to not this town meeting, but the next town meeting with a design and a plan for a playground.
Great. Any other questions from Mark and Chris? If not, great. Thank you both very much.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. So we've gone through things. I thought it'd be worthwhile just spending a few minutes going back through the presentations, looking for comments. So we should probably start with fire and ambulance. I would say one of the themes this evening and throughout the last couple of years really has been professionalization of services within the town and some of the impact of that professionalization on the budget. So people have comments, questions that they want, things that they want to raise about the presentation on fire and ambulance.
Hey, Woody, it's Kevin Bauman. So is this just the warrant committee now at this point, or what?
Well, it's our discussion. Yeah, I mean, we have open meetings, so.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the justification maybe for a 30% increase just didn't come. It might be totally justified. I don't know, but I guess maybe just from a presentation format, I didn't really understand what's not happening today, or what are we at risk for? I guess it just wasn't clear to me. Like what are we getting for a 30% increase? I guess that we don't have today. That's the only thing that kind of jumped out at me.
Other comments, suggestions, questions?
Woody, would you like me to try and answer Kevin's question?
That'd be great, Dave. I will send around the report when I get it. I think I have some insight into it as well. So why don't you go ahead and try and answer, and then I'll chime in.
So the big issue right now is without a professional fire chief, is there coverage of a chief? And part of that is the amount of administrative and regulatory work that needs to be done, as you heard. And so that's one critical issue. The other one is the fire department is very much lacking personnel, and to the point of where it's becoming critical on are they able to cover the town 24/7, 365. So by getting a chief and looking down the road, probably an assistant chief, it means that the town would have coverage from the highest officer level year round. And we do not have that right now. And there's been a lot of disagreement within the fire department on who should lead it. And it is the turmoil has basically caused a couple of chiefs to have very short tenures. And the only way to get around this is to go outside the force to a professional chief and bring them in, one with their credentials, their experience, their ability to manage departments. So it between the EMT and fire coverage, this is almost a mission critical, because obviously we want to have someone answer the call when we all need it. What do you got, Woody? You got something better than that?
No, not better at all. But I think the fire department, as with so many other town services, is kind of responding to the fact that expectations and standards have risen over time, and the nature of actually the nature of firefighting, I think, has changed over time. In that, as was mentioned, the number of fires has gone down, but the fires that do occur are more challenging to fight. I think in terms of training and certification and compliance with regulations, it's really, really hard to sustain that sort of thing in our current world with an all-volunteer service. The load, the administrative load, and the load in terms of leadership and competence is just significantly greater than it was 30 or 40 years ago. People didn't expect as much, and the standards were lower, and the quality of service was lower consequently. So I think the town in a variety of ways got by with incredible activity from volunteers and with individuals in leadership positions in a variety of positions that were entrenched, if you will, and we're now experiencing some of the consequence of new people with new standards and new visions. So, it's not an accident that there's a lot of requests for capital replacement in DPW with Kevin now running and leading things. The library has changed with Bethany and new leadership. I think this is something the town is experiencing. I personally think it's a great thing, honestly, but it does cost something.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I would say the fire department for me is the perfect example of like how you think that you don't need insurance until something happens, until someone breaks in your house or steal your car. and then you regret that you don't have. So I don't think that any of us here want to be in a place where we said, oh, I wish I had funded the fire department before. Like you have to experience a loss to agree that this is an important role to have. I mean, I had used their services twice here, and I could not be happier with everything that has been provided, that was provided when I needed. I think the challenge that I see going through the presentations like we are having is that I don't have like in front of me kind of like a baseline to compare how that fits. And I think the fact that like we saw some that had the information about, what was the increase compared year over year. I think I need a bigger picture to be able to follow better what are the proposals we have. And I know that we had discussed in previous meetings, if we have, besides the guidance that we gave, but if there's like a historical percentage of the budget for each one of the departments that we can track to see, how they are really evolving. Maybe we will get there. Maybe I will get there because I'm new to this, to the committee. But I think it will be helpful also for maybe the future to set up some sort of a template for presentations so we know exactly what we expect to see from each department. And again, like to help the thinking process of what is evolving, how they are managing, is there any leverage in, or what are the bigger tickets that are coming? But looking into a big picture instead of saying, oh, and I remember we had discussed a lot about the school committee where, the percentage of the budget that goes towards the school, what happens if there's some disruption somewhere else? So going back to the fire department, I think that it was clear to me at least what the proposal is, and I think it's very much needed. I think there's a lot to be learned from my side, but I appreciate what I was able to see here today.
Cam?
Yeah, I was sort of, well, I've sort of got a bit of a conundrum if we're financing lots of fire engines that then spend most of their time attending fires elsewhere. It seems like there's a little bit of disequilibrium, and I sort of get it, but I'm wondering why, what the mechanism is where we can sort of get an equivalent value from those services, perhaps back in return. And I'm just not sure where that leads, but it does sort of leave a big question mark in my head.
Yeah.
But Cam, I understood that we are getting more help than we are helping.
No, the other way around, in a fairly significant fashion, actually, Simone.
Oh, then I misunderstood.
Well, at least that was my understanding. The thing is that we've got these fire engines that have got water tanks in them. And for sort of fires that aren't near a fire hydrant, the city type fire departments really appreciate having Dover turn up with their large tanks to actually fight these fires, whether it's brush fires or whatever. And I understand why they would appreciate it, but I'm wondering what value we can get in return. And it's more a sort of an internal question I have. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Woody, this is Michael. If you don't mind, I just wanted to jump in. So Cam, I just respectfully, I think you may have misheard. So I think overwhelmingly it's actually the opposite. We receive
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
My
It's an
apologies.
important point. We receive more mutual aid from our neighboring communities than we provide.
Okay.
And that's both on the fire side and very significantly on the ambulance side. And I don't want to misspeak, but I think actually
much
Chief Wright
appreciated, Michael.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Chief Wright might still be here. Particularly on the ambulance side, we only provide what's called BLS, Basic Life Service, and that for all ALS calls, for anything more significant, we automatically need to use our neighboring communities.
Okay, forgive my ignorance on that. I apologize. And of course, I don't want other towns to charge us for their excess services. So that solves that problem.
I also think having a professional chief may give us more confidence in terms of evaluating the capital requests. You know, just
right.
We have little kind of sense of this right now, and it feels like that would be something that would be useful. Marty, you're muted.
Sorry. I was just curious with the professionalization that the fire department is experiencing. Will there be or can there be opportunities when you think about the ambulance service and the EMTs and advanced life support people? I guess I had understood in the larger departments, sometimes there's an overlap or more of an integration there, and maybe there's some offsets or opportunities. I don't know. That's something we should think about.
In terms, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, as I understand it, in the large fire departments, you have firemen that also are trained as EMTs or EMS, and they staff the ambulances in the same building as the fire trucks, and the calls come in and people are assigned and they're trained to do both. And it appeared, at least on the charts that were presented, that it's a whole separate staff that does the ambulance versus the fire service. And I wonder if there's an opportunity with the professionalization, if we're moving towards what the larger towns do, to combine those functions more.
My sense is that in most larger towns, the services are largely independent, although many firefighters are trained to a BLS level, but not beyond that. I think most ambulance services are because the training is so intense now, are relatively unique. Again, I think this may be something that having a full-time chief may help us with. I'm skeptical it's going to save us money. I'll say that. Any other comments about fire and ambulance? If not, we could go. Any comments about the planning board?
My only question, I had been wondering, if she does, I know Cam, you sort of asked this in a different way, but if with the FEMA floodplains, if they don't get the maps, will they pull? I guess you can't pull a warrant, but will that negate work moving on the warrant this meeting? Is that what is that what the implication was?
I think that was it didn't sound like we'd get the maps under any circumstances until July. I think.
I think they're trying to get. They think they're getting them before, but it doesn't take effect until July. Is that right?
Maybe that's correct, but my understanding from Carol is that they were pretty confident that they were going to get what they needed to go to town meeting on this one.
Okay. And I think, partially the changes to conform with the law, and if the maps haven't been prepared and can't be included as part of the current bylaw set, we'll probably just have to deal with it again at a future town meeting.
That may be.
Okay. The other warrants were so straightforward. They were just bringing. Yeah. There may be confusion. People confused about the easements. It just seemed like in past meetings that sort of triggered nervous reactions, but I don't think the actual proposal is concerning. It only covers a handful of easements in the first place, but people seem to be nervous about easements in general. So
yeah, I agree. It could provoke a significant discussion at town meeting which is unnecessary. So think they'll have to think about their presentation quite a bit.
Yeah, agreed.
And there was no budget request during that, right? Like that was just more information.
That's right. We have to vote as a committee about each article. So these are all going to be articles that get presumably will be on the warrant. So we're just informing ourselves about what they're going to be.
Okay.
DPW. Comments, questions, suggestions?
I'm not sure whether I should jump in where angels fear to tread, but but I, putting my sustainability hat on again, I think we find that nearly all town departments are pretty averse to exploring new technologies such as electric vehicles to solve the problems. Now, I hear that Wellesley is only buying electric vehicles for their mower parks at the moment, for example. And I think we probably need to come up with some way in which we can really drive the issue of moving towards sustainable solutions if we can. Now, I don't mean that we have to pay through the nose for it, and I'm completely understanding of infrastructure challenges in doing that conversion. So I'm not really pushing action so much as trying to educate the town staff that there is an expectation that we're gradually going to have to move to sustainability. And I was a little bit miffed at Kevin's sort of assumption, oh, we're still going to be using fuel in 30 years. If we are, we're going to be living in a hot hell. That's all I can say. So sorry for letting off steam, but that is a concern for me. The other concern I have is that we don't really have any standards for the replacement of vehicles. The sort of numbers that Kevin was putting in place, after X years, we need to replace it. I think we somehow need to do some more work, and I don't know how we should go about it, but to try and get some standards in place that these type of vehicles should last for this amount of time or this many hours, and that it's documented up front and not manufactured out of thin air every year. Because I think it's often used as just a convenient reason for getting new toys.
Yeah, although what we're replacing right now are vehicles that are decades old. So I agree, though, going forward, in particular, it feels like we ought to have some clearer standards, or capital budget should have some clearer standards about what replacement cycles should be. It does relate very strongly to electrification and how we're going forward, because feels as though in the next decade we're going to be making pretty substantial strides towards electrification. It may be a reason to push Barry and capital budget around the whole leasing idea. Sounds as though leasing is not impossible.
Yeah, I think that's more a town finance question as well. So Michael and Carl probably need to have some input there.
Yeah, that's what I
I
took
have
away
to
from
say,
it too.
go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say, it just sounds like nobody's really kind of done the due diligence to, just kind of a buy versus lease, pure finance view.
Well, Barry may have done more work on this than we're aware, but it's worth pushing.
So it's more expensive to lease vehicles, because if you're going to bond them, the municipal rates are lower than the standard leasing rates. So, for many of the vehicles, there were studies done. it's simply more expensive. I think if you have a really large fleet, just like in some of the larger towns, they get special rates for those large fleets. Our fleets just aren't big enough. And I remember we did have the Collins Center look at lease versus buy for some of the equipment. I also believe that there was a study that was performed by the Collins Center for vehicles at the highway garage, so that we did have a better idea of what the useful lives are. But it could be something maybe we were going to do and didn't do. So let me double check on whether or not we do have that study. Mike, maybe you know, was that something we did or something we planned to do?
So I believe there was a study that was done before my time, and I'm sure Kevin can add more details. But Kevin, in his replacement schedule, does use industry standards, so it's not him, making up timeframes. It's industry based DPW standards for how long you would expect vehicles to last, and when you start to cross that threshold of the repairs start to cost more.
Yeah.
And the maintenance starts more.
Michael, I don't doubt that for one moment. My concern is there's no transparency in it. And if we had published numbers so that we can refer to those and say, oh, yes, we understand that. Because at the moment, we're just got to take it on faith that this is what's happening.
Sure, and I know Kevin did include. And I don't believe he was asked to, and I think that's why he was prepared tonight to give you his complete capital presentation that he did to the Capital Budget Committee. But I know there's slides in there that do list it out, so I can ask Kevin to send a copy of that to the Warrant Committee, because I think that might answer and might be helpful to some of the issues you're discussing right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what Cam's getting to is, and it should just be updating the capital policy and including these schedules in those.
Exactly.
And maybe having a periodic schedule where they get updated, maybe every 5 years you take a look and make sure that the guidance is still applicable.
Sure.
Put much better than I could, Robin. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm still stuck somehow, in like if I have to think in a very simplistic way, this whole discussion about leasing or buying and so forth. I mean, I'm still concerned of how we're going to solve the problem of the maintenance of the fleet, whatever decision and direction we go. Having said that, then if I think in a simplistic way, leasing would be a solution, because if it starts getting a lot of problems, you kind of like get rid of that, and not having to use duct tape to fix stuff around. I would appreciate to understand a little bit more about how we mitigate the issues that we've been already facing in terms of maintenance of all these larger equipments, as we plan to buy new. And of course, I expect that we then have less need for maintenance, for immediate maintenance, but then we have the preventative maintenance that needs to be done the same way.
Yeah, I hear you there, Simona. The reality is, though, that a lot of this equipment that we're replacing is decades old.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point where you can't even get spare parts for a lot of it. So it's a tricky path to follow.
Yeah, no, and I'm all in to replace this equipment. I'm just trying to see how we can make them, like the maintenance component of the fleet, walk together with the acquisition of the fleet, no matter which direction we go. It's just like not one or the other, or let's, the problem right now it's one, let's forget about the other one. And then we get stuck with a bunch of brand new vehicles that will not work.
Yeah.
Well, there are external garages that do maintenance. It's just more cost effective to have your own mechanic.
Yep.
So it's not as though you're not getting the fleet fixed. As a matter of fact, there's a mechanic on West Street in Medfield, and you'll see there's Millis town trucks there, Dover town trucks there, Medfield town trucks there getting repaired. So there are resources. I think it just would be more convenient and potentially less expensive, given the age of our fleet, to have our own mechanic. And also because these vehicles are so old, fewer people are qualified to work on them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just want to make sure that we have a plan, whatever direction we go.
And of course, I have to also add that electric vehicles involve far less maintenance than fossil fuel powered ones.
And you know, I also would like to move to electrification, but the reality is there aren't any dump trucks that are electric right now.
No, but we've got a lot of, say, the police vehicles and so on. You know, I'm not pushing
Right.
it, Robin.
Right.
I just think we need to set up some guidance to the departments that they seriously consider electric alternatives. And if there aren't any, that's fine. But my feeling is at times we just get, oh, no, that's not possible. When I get sort of comments that Wellesley is doing all their mowing with electric vehicles right now. And so I don't know. It's a problem how you push forward a mentality that you consider alternatives realistically.
Right, and I think we also need to be careful because many of these other towns have much larger police forces, and how many, you know, so we need to understand, are the detective and chief's cars the one that are electric? Are all their cruisers electric? So,
yeah,
you
no,
know,
I
so
agree
I
with
think
that.
it's a much larger project. You know, I do know that trash collection trucks, for some reason, those are electric. I mean, you see
Yeah.
them all over Boston and in other towns, but you know,
Right,
I've yet to
right.
see a snowplow or a dump truck that is electric. Ultimately, everything will be electric. And
Yeah, but I'm just
but
trying to work out.
I think we do need to understand what makes sense to electrify now, right?
Well,
And
would it
then
be
have a
reasonable?
plan to move forward with that.
But to Cam's point, so if looking at the capital request the DPW made, certainly there's electric mowers and tractors. Is that something would be reasonable to ask them to compare an electric price on, or is that not our place to do?
And they have done that in the past. You know, I will tell you that, you know, the stand-up mowers that you see all the lawn people use, an electric one is $35,000. A gas one is $10,000. So you know, right now the pricing isn't as competitive, but that doesn't mean in 3 years from now it's not going to be competitive. But we have asked them. Cam, I think there was one truck that Kevin did give us the electric version of, right? Last year in capital.
Robin, it's Michael. So I just wanted to add, you are right. So first of all, Kim, I'm fully supportive. I think we should look at electric options for all our requests. Specifically for last year, Kevin was looking at a loader, and he had priced. They don't have all electric, but they did have a hybrid loader.
Right.
And I think it came in about $100,000 more in capital. Their recommendation was to go with the traditional diesel, given the cost difference.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't responding. I was having trouble with my mic. But
I thought you were just sick of me.
no, I was. You know, that's not at all likely. But that's all I'm really asking, Michael, is for us to do a serious review of what is out there on the market and see where it costs us, but also to set a sort of strategic direction for the town that we do want to go towards sustainable solutions. And that means at some point, we've got to start getting serious about finding replacements. And of course, you're right, Robin, the prices of most of these things are excessive at the moment. And I don't have any problem with us then choosing to go with conventional vehicles. I just find it rather challenging that we don't seriously consider the other alternatives.
Are there any grants that would that help in this kind of a conversion?
That's a very good question, Mish. I haven't really explored that option, but
So
I'm sure there are some alternatives.
Right, I think they do fall under the Green Communities Act. However, we have, because we got such a large Green Communities grant for the community center, we have not been eligible to get additional grants
from
for
the
the
state
last few years.
Mm-hmm.
But there may be others as well.
Right.
There's also robot mowers now, you know that?
Yeah.
Let's put them on the turf field.
Yeah.
And there's solar robot mowers at that.
Right. I mean, there are a couple of homes on Donnelly Estate that have them, like they just riding around the lawns.
Well, it's funny you mention it because there's a gentleman who lives in Donnelly Estates. I think he's got a startup that's building them. So maybe that's his house.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could buy 10 small robot mowers and get the job done, you know?
Well,
certainly save the labor, right?
I talked to him. He said he offered those to the town. He offered the because he's doing this as a nonprofit, and he mentioned that he offered them to the town for their use on town grounds.
This is
really?
Michael Jaffe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
did
I
the
don't
town
know.
say?
He just mentioned them.
Did the town take him up on that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh. Huh.
But I don't know all the backstory of it all. I just know that much. You know, I was standing next to him in a football game once.
Right. Huh, that's interesting though. Like you could do a pilot in the graveyard or something. I don't know.
Needs to be quiet there.
Hey, I'm going to cut this off. Parks and Rec.
I'm getting tired.
Any comments about Parks and Rec? Their budget is not that challenging this year. I will just, I thought the rail trail discussion last night was terrific. The meeting went really well. It is likely to be a significant financial hit at some point. It's not going to appear on this town meeting, but the special town meeting in the fall could have some significant challenge. It's not going to be the $10 million we were contemplating having for Hale, but I just think in terms of the greater scheme of things, we just need to be aware that that's looming in the background.
Right. And Woody, I really fully agree with you that it was a great presentation, and I really found it quite useful and informative. And I would recommend that others who haven't seen it go to the rail trail pages on the web and get a copy of the video. It probably isn't up there quite today, but in the next couple of days it should be posted, and it's very well worth reviewing.
It was very informative.
You know, it was great. I have a question. It was a great discussion, and the person who brought up connecting the schools, I mean, if the rail trail comes through to Needham, you know, the schools, and I was curious as to whether the citizens petition about the sidewalk could be somehow push to the rail trail project, whether they could work together, because it's sort of, they're right there, they're right together. And I thought maybe there's funding under the rail trail for, the sidewalk. I don't know, maybe that's something that.
I don't think you want to go there.
Okay.
Let's make my life easier for now.
I take your advice. Thanks.
Okay.
I thought that the presentation yesterday was super informative as well. And I would say that, going back to what Ken mentioned in terms of overall transparency, I think what we have to pay attention with this big project is how we set the expectations, particularly, with the experience that we had with the community center. I remember when I first started paying attention to that, someone said to me, wow, it only took 20 years. And yesterday, there were a couple of comments of people saying, I hope it happens in my lifetime. And these were people my age. So I hope it happens really soon. So I think I would appreciate if we can think about this collectively, as to say, if we have a best case scenario, that if everything falls into the right place and we get the funding and so forth, this happens in 5 years, or this happens in 3 years. At least we get some sense of direction, but at the same time also helps with the overall commitment to get things moving forward, rather than just saying, yeah, we are doing this here, but we have absolutely no idea what's come next and how many years we get to. We have to be able to at least be transparent enough to say, this is our best case scenario, this is the worst case scenario, and we will do everything that we can to get closer to this. But we, keeping as a transparency process, then we know, or we at least we are able to convince the residents, when we actually need their support to make things happen, that there is a history that they can track and understand.
So great. Next week, as I think I went through the agenda, appreciate all the comments. I thought the presentations were great this time. So I promise, being extremely uncomfortable being the only one with his face up, I promise I will fix the video part of Zoom for next week. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn. You'll have to speak though, because I can't see you.
Second.
Did someone make the motion?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you. And Simone, you second?
Yep.
Okay. Marty?
Yes.
Cam?
Yes.
Simone?
Yes.
Evan?
Yes.
Nina?
Yes.
And Janet?
Yes.
Nish?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. All right, great. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.